Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my show, My Turn to Talk. I am Solid Blue Sister, and today is Thursday, June 3rd, 2021. I hope everyone has been having a good day thus far. And today I am going to talk about something that I've been hearing a lot lately, and I was watching a TV show last night, and it's a phrase that you hear from time to time. I've heard it, more and more over the last year. And that phrase is, I don't see color. So that's what I want to talk about this afternoon. I want to talk about people who say, I don't see color. When people use that term, let me pull up one thing here. Let's see. Okay, it's not pulling up. Okay, so when you use the term, you don't see color, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I'm going to play a video a little later in a couple of minutes where someone breaks it down really well. But when you don't see color, you're not seeing someone's identity, which is a deep part of their lives. When a person says they don't see color, I understand that, what they're basically saying is, I'm not a racist. I'm your friend because you're you, were offered this job based on your experience and what you can bring to the table. I understand that. But when you say that you don't see color, you're kind of dismissing that person. Now, people are going to disagree with me on this. I can feel the pushback now. People are going to disagree with me on this. They're going to disagree with the statement that I just made, that you're denying, that person, who they are. If I'm having a discussion with you and we're talking about race, or, we're talking about bigotry or biases, and you say, and I'm trying to explain something to you in terms of race, and you say, well, I don't see color. You're, number one, you're cutting me off in terms of me not being able to explain, what I'm trying to get across. And I'm going to give you an example. There's a person, and I brought this person up before, I'm not going to say any names, but this person always says, I don't see color. I don't see color. Every time we have a conversation, which I, really don't want to get into this whole thing with this person because it just goes downhill really, really fast. So my thing is, I'm not going to discuss this with this person, but whenever this person, brings up race, they bring up Black people, and there's always the negative things about Black people. But then they'll say, well, I don't see color. And then the very next sentence they'll say, but if you people would only, do what the officer says, or, Black people, they steal more than any other race. You're followed around the store because they expect Black people, to do this, to do that. But then they turn around and say, but I don't see race. Well, you do see race because you keep bringing it up. You keep inserting, not only are you seeing race, you're seeing the negative parts of a certain group of people. I mean, we all see race. if someone's walking down the street, they're coming towards me, I'm going to see if it's a white man, black man, Asian man, Hispanic man, black woman, white woman. You see race. You cannot help not seeing someone's race. And usually in your mind, even though you may not want to, you immediately form a bias or an opinion about that person. You'll immediately think, well, let me, get my purse a little closer to me because here comes this black guy. He's going to try to, to steal from me, or, here's this sweet old lady, sweet old white lady walking down the street, she's harmless when she could, pull out a gun and rob you. Whereas, the young, African-American, man or the Hispanic man who's walking down the street are the ones that would be running to your defense to protect you. You see race. There's just absolutely no way that you would not see race. Now, having said that, our race also tells the story of our lives. Our skin color has a history. When you're born, whatever color you are born, you immediately have history. You have history of the people who came before you. You have the history of your mother and father, your grandmother, your grandfather. There's history there. But then there's a history that you're going to create and make for yourself. But your color has history. I hear the term, I don't see color. Also intermingle with the term, I know Black people. Some of my best friends are Black. I have, Black friends who say, some of my best friends are white. By you making that statement, you are acknowledging that you see color. People will disagree with me. I know they will. Feel free. When I started this show, I knew that I wanted to have a show where, and again, I've said this before, this is why I'm on Zoom, because I want to have the ability to talk to people, to have a conversation with people. And I knew that I was going to talk about things that a lot of people don't want to talk about. It's funny how we say religion and politics are the two things you should never talk about. But in today's society, everything that is in the news, everything that is intermingled with, a lot of things we do is religion and politics. It wasn't supposed to be, you keep church and state separate, but church has come into our politics. Religion, is in our politics. Politics are in our religion. How can you not talk about it? So I knew that I wanted to have a show, to talk about things that make people, just want to put their head down and keep going, or, they just don't want to talk about it. And that's probably one of the problems that we have today is nobody wants to talk about anything until it's too late to talk about it. And with the way, society is today, we need to talk about a lot of things. We need to talk about a lot of things. And, unfortunately, race and color are something that we still need to talk about. So when you say, I don't see color, are you not seeing that child that came across the border and is now, was separated from their parent? Are you not seeing, the people who are being stopped for, at traffic lights for tags, or having a, what do you call it, a air freshener hanging from their rear view mirror, and everything just goes haywire? Are you not seeing color? You have to, and I know Black people who have said that I don't see color. Again, how can you not? When we walk out of our door every day, we see color. Now there is, I want to, okay, so there is someone by the name of Val Brown who coined a phrase, racial identity denier. When you don't see a person's race, you are denying the very fabric of their being. You are denying something they cannot and should not rid or deny themselves of. How can we deny in others what they cannot and should not deny in themselves? A person cannot not see their race. It looks them in the face every day as they look in the mirror. Their race is part of the experiences that they have as they navigate through society. Racial identity deniers. When I read that, I was like, wow, I had never heard that term before. And I thought it was an appropriate term. And I thought it was something that should probably pick up speed. So before I go on, does anyone have anything to say with what I just said? Let's see, Shy Lady, I hear you are here. See, you are here. Would you like to make a comment?
Oh, no, I'm just listening.
Okay, all right, all right. Okay, and then I also want to bring up, when you say you don't see color, you are seeing color when you get on that elevator with a person who looks different from you, or you're on that bus and someone sits next to you who is of a different race than you, and you start to move over just a little bit to the side, whatever, you clutch your purse or you clutch your bag or whatever a little tighter, or you may get up and go sit someplace else, or you may make that person feel like, I don't want to sit next to you. But you see color. When your teacher, when you're, in college, and your teacher walks into the room, for the very first class, you notice their color. And you will say, I have Mrs. Jones, she's white. I have Mrs. Jones, she's Black. I have, Mrs. Jones, she's Asian, whatever. That comes up in conversation. If you are living in a neighborhood and someone says, okay, you moved into your new house, how do you like it? What are your neighbors like? more than likely you're going to say, oh, my neighbor next door, he's a really cool white man. She's a really nice Black lady. You're going to do it. You're going to notice color. You're going to make those statements. And to say that you don't, I don't really think you're being honest with yourself, because somewhere along, you may not do it all the time, but you do it. We all do. Let me call you back. I gotta, go across the street to give my Black neighbor, her mail, or, whatever. You are making that statement. We all do it. I'm sorry, Charlene, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I don't mean to interrupt, but you are correct. We all do that. Just like you say, your neighbors, when you talk to people, like you may talk to people you work with or family, and they may ask you, what are your neighbors like? He's like, oh, well, my neighborhood is, I got a couple of Asian people on my block, and then there's like a couple of Hispanic people across the street. There's some Black people on the other street. So you just may say, my neighborhood is probably 30% white, 30% Hispanic, 30% Black. You talk about things like that, your racial makeup, like in your neighborhood. You do that. It's normal, in my opinion.
Right. This is what I'm saying. It is normal. So to say that, you don't see color. And again, I understand why people say it, and the people who say it, I understand that what they're more than likely, I'm just going to assume here, more than likely what they're trying to say is that, I'm not racist. I'm not judging you. I'm not judging you, based on your race. I didn't hire you, based on, because you're Black, because you're white, because you're a woman, whatever. But you do see race, and even when you're out with your friends, whatever. I can't tell you how many times I've, been out, with friends, and I've been the only one, and some of my friends have even commented to me, are you okay? Do you want to leave? Because, I see that you're the only person of color here, whatever. And of course, we're used to it a lot, being the only one. But then we'll have a conversation as we're sitting around that table, having, lunch or whatever. And one of them will say, well, I don't see color. Well, you do, because you just mentioned, am I okay being the only one? So I don't know if we should, if that phrase should just be erased and no one says anymore, or maybe you should just come out and say, I don't judge you, or, because of the way you look, the color of your skin. Maybe that's better to do, but saying I don't see color is denying the person of color.
Unless you're colorblind.
They are. Pardon?
Unless you're colorblind, of course.
Okay, so let me ask you, when you say colorblind, do you think that colorblind is not the same thing as saying I don't see color?
That is definitely different.
Okay, so what is different in your opinion?
Oh, I mean, if you like literally can't see colors, then maybe you would. I just mean like. No, never mind.
You're saying that if someone is physically colorblind.
Yeah, physically
colorblind. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Yes. Okay. So, then let me ask you, if the person is not physically colorblind, but they use the term, I am colorblind, I think we should, the whole world should just love each other, whatever. Do you think that's the same thing as saying, I don't see color?
I believe it
Um,
is because I mean they're not using the phrase to be discriminatory at all. They're trying to imply that they don't they don't judge or discriminate based on race. So
well, I think we should celebrate people's differences personally.
Oh, okay. So when you say celebrate, how do you propose doing that?
Well, some people from different countries have different, traditions, and I think that we should all be accepting of everyone's beliefs. And I just feel like we should, not, accept the fact that not everyone is the exact same, but we should accept the fact that they are equal, if that makes any sense.
No, I mean, absolutely. Do you ever think that we will ever get to a place where in America, where we would celebrate and accept people? Do you think that America will ever get to that point? Because I personally don't think that we ever will.
I agree. First, yeah, I think that although I think it's gotten better, I don't think it's never gonna be to where I think we would want it.
Okay.
I don't think it'll ever get to that point in the entire world because America is, I would say, one of the most accepting countries in general because they're out of every country, there's always going to be discrimination.
Okay,
And
so
it's prevalent always. So, and I don't think you can just put America at the top of the discriminatory list.
okay, so when you say America is the most accepting, now I have to go back to the show that I did yesterday. With the history that America has, do you really think that we are the most accepting country?
Well, it's about how high we've progressed from that history. And although there is still bigotry around it every day. I mean, there's less and less of it as we keep growing away from the past. We're gonna keep growing and be more accepting. So, and every country, almost not every country, but most countries have gone through, discriminatory times where others are, either held into slavery or prosecuted for their religion, stuff like that. But we, as America, we've gone away from the we every decade we're becoming more and more progressive, I would say.
I don't know if I would agree with you on that. I would hope that that's true, but I don't know if I necessarily agree because, for instance, I look at the protests that went on last summer, and I was born in the 60s. I'm 59 years old. Okay, and I remember the day, that Martin Luther King died. I mean, I remember, what I wanted to go next door and play with my friends, and my mother and father are like, no, Martin Luther King, was killed. And I look at the protests that my parents participated in, in the 60s, and I look at what went on last summer, and I kind of see the same thing, just different generations of people. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I see you mainly see the hatred from the older people, like the main people at the Capitol building this summer, or sorry, earlier this year. It was mainly older people that have lived and seen they've seen hatred past in their life. So I feel like
But
uh,
wouldn't you say that this past summer, with Black Lives Matter or whatever, wouldn't you say that the majority of the people who were protesting were younger people, that you didn't have older people, that it was the younger crowd who is starting to come out to express how they feel, that it's the younger generation?
yes, there was I think it was mostly around, people, early 30s or younger coming out to those meetings and expressing the freedom, just having freedom for all. And of course, of excuse me. Uh, yeah, many of the older people, especially older white people with Black Lives Matter, you didn't see that much of them. So
Right. Okay.
I think there's a lot more progressive young adults and teenagers than. So I just feel like we're going to grow out of discrimination. Not all the way, of course, because some people will always be taught that, but
Okay, all right. And see, this is, and once again, this is why I wanted to do this show. And I wanted to do it on Zoom, because if I'm the only one talking and you're typing things out to me, you can't express what you want to say. What you want to convey, you can always say, or get through if someone's typing. This is what I wanted to have. I wanted to have where we can either agree, disagree, whatever. So I thank you for your comments. I do want to share something with you. This is a parody, and it's about 5 minutes long. So if you can bear with me, but I do want to know what your thoughts are. And again, it is a parody, is meant to be funny. So I hope you take it in that sense. So hold on, let me get rid of this. And let's do this.
So many incredible, super diverse movies last year.
Diverse movies?
Yeah, like Moonlight or Lion, Hidden Figures and Fences, movies that didn't like just feature white people.
So interesting. I never really thought about that.
Really? Even after the whole Oscars so white thing and all the articles written about it?
Call me crazy, but I just don't see race. I guess I'm just the least racist person here.
Okay. Race is like often like a pretty obvious thing to observe. It's not like racist to notice.
I had to laugh. Zach, my goodness, I only see one race,
Ugh,
the human race.
such bullshit. You're only telling yourself that so you don't have to think about racism or confront your own prejudices.
No, I'm not prejudiced, okay? I don't even judge Schrap for being a woman.
I'm a man, Katie, you know that.
No, honestly, I just guessed. This is gonna sound nuts, but I don't see gender and I don't see sex. I just see people.
You don't see how men and women look different?
No, I just see like shapeless blobs walking around.
Okay, and if one of those shapeless blobs were pregnant, you would then know that it was a woman.
To me, it could just be like a heavy-set man who has like a big watermelon stomach. Okay, I just am so committed to equality. I'm just a good person.
Unless you're blind, you can tell that people have inherent differences.
Oh, I wouldn't know if I was blind or not because I don't see disabilities. I'm not a monster.
So if someone were in a wheelchair, you wouldn't be able to see the wheelchair.
I have never seen a wheelchair.
Never seen a wheelchair.
I don't know what a wheelchair looks like.
If someone were in a wheelchair, you would not install a ramp in your building.
I would refuse.
What if someone was missing a limb?
It's perhaps tucked under their little butt.
If someone were deaf?
Talk to them as if they could hear.
Why are you so proud of yourself?
Okay, well, here's a thought. Maybe you don't get it because you have less experience on Earth than I do.
Experience? We're all older than you.
I'm sorry, but I don't see age.
Oh, come on. You're telling me if there was an old woman and a baby, you wouldn't be able to tell which one's older? One of them is called an old woman. It's in the name, Katie.
No, because I believe in equality. And I believe everyone is the same age.
That's not what equality means. You have two older brothers. Can you at least acknowledge that?
Yes, and I believe both women are.
Okay, so I wanted to show that again, it was meant to be funny, is it wasn't real. But do you think people really see the world like that? That there are people who truly believe that I don't see anything. Everything is just great. We should all just, like I said before, we should all just love each other.
Well, I do agree that we should all just love each other. But one thing I didn't agree with in the video is that I think there's a lot of, I think there's a bigger difference between men and women and then people from each race or ethnicity, because we're all humans no matter what race, but we're different if we're either male or female.
Okay, let me ask you, do you think that we are different in terms of our race, that some people are treated differently than others because of our race, whether we're a man or a woman?
I mean, it depends on what situation you're in, of course, but of course, there's going to be discriminatory people no matter where you are. And, no matter what race you are, there's going to be racists.
Okay.
But, but if you're in an accepting crowd, they'll treat you as an equal.
Okay. All right. Going back to what I said in terms of, do you think some people are treated differently? If you go for a job interview, whatever, and one person's white, one person's black, one person's Asian, and I'm just Hispanic, and they're all going for the same job. They all went to the same school. They all graduated the same year. They all got straight A's. They all, did a great job in their interview. Do you think that there would be some bias in terms of who the company would hire based on color?
It just depends on the interviewer, really. I mean, of course, the interviewer can be racist, but if he's not,
I wouldn't hire somebody of color.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'll come back to you, but I want Joseph to finish, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, Joseph, go ahead. Could you finish your statement?
Yes. So it depends on the interviewer of the job. If they do care about race, and if they were taught prejudice and hate, then yeah, they will show bias. But if it's unbiased interviewer, then they're probably just want to hire based on confidence and how well you speak and what skills you can provide. But it depends on the person. I don't think you can safely say that there will be discrimination just because of race. And if a person of color wasn't hired, you can't blame that on prejudice always, because maybe the person that wasn't of color, spoke better, had more qualifications. Just it depends. You can't really just say for sure.
Okay. All right. Latrell Jones, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm black myself, and I wouldn't hire people of color.
Okay, why?
They're just not reliable.
And you said that you are a person of color.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So,
My husband is self-employed, so he doesn't have to hire anybody he does not want to hire.
okay. All right. Well, thank you for your input. All right. So, basically then what I'm hearing from our other participants is that you do see color, and based on that color, you would automatically just not hire that person because, because you have a bias. Okay. Okay. I mean, if that's, the way you feel, then, that is the way you feel. That's why, I'm having this, this discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you're really a, person of color. So, okay. Okay, so, does anyone else want to make a comment before I keep going?
No.
Okay, all right.
You look like the baby.
Okay, and we have a couple of trolls here and they are gone. So let me do a couple of things here. Okay, so I had a couple of trolls there, so I'm not, really going to pay much attention to that. I'll just keep moving on. So let me ask Steve, do you think, or let me ask you this, have you ever said, I don't see color?
Personally, no.
Okay, have you been around people or in a conversation with people who have said, I don't see color?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and what do you think about that?
I know they mean well, but it's just I don't know. Honestly, I just never said it before, but I think it's fine personally. I know they mean well, but
Okay. Joseph, I'll ask you the same thing. Do you have you ever used that term, or have you ever known anyone or been in conversation with someone who has said, I don't see color?
No, I do not use that term, but yeah, I have been around people that have, and I'm not a fan of it. I think using that term does point out race, other than if you really don't see color, you wouldn't point it out in the first place, in my opinion. So I'm not a fan of it, but with people like Mr. Rosenberger said, people that do use it are not using it to be discriminatory. But yeah, I think it does point out race if you do use that phrase. That's why I'm not a fan of it.
Okay. So I'm going to assume that Mr. Smart and Mr. Rosenberger, that you are both white.
that is correct.
Okay, so let me ask this, because one thing about, doing this show, the participants that I've had are mostly Black, and I've, as I've only been doing this for a month, and, I know it's going to take time to grow the show, whatever, but I want to have participants that are Black, white, everyone, so it won't seem so one-sided. Do you feel that you are um, discriminated against because you are white? Do you think that Black people are racist towards you, Hispanics, Asians? How do you feel?
I mean, sure, there are some people, who I think on a wider scale, like systemically, no, I don't think white people are discriminated against, but obviously you'll have individuals who will maybe do it, but not on a wider scale. It's not the same thing. There's not really any systemic racism going on with white people.
Do you think there's systemic racism going on with people of color? When I say people of color, I'm not just talking about Black people, I'm talking about people of color.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Do you think that one way that racism can be addressed in this country and the divisiveness that we have could go away if white people acknowledge that there is racism?
It's a good first step.
I do agree with that. It just starts out at home. It needs to be taught in the household. I mean, that's how I was raised. Yeah. I would like, you see a dog of a different species, it's no matter if it's a golden retriever or chihuahua, it's still a dog, and you're going to treat it almost the same. So I mean, if it acts aggressive towards you, or maybe you would want to stay away, but it's not either one of those. Not because of how they look, it's because of how they act.
Okay, or how they were treated. Let me, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, okay, I know what I wanted to ask you guys. Okay, so do you agree or think that the 1619 project should move forward, or that critical race theory should be taught in schools K through 12?
Can I get a refresher on what that is, please?
Critical race theory is basically where you're talking about the history of America. You're talking about the racist past. You're talking about slavery. You're not just saying, Harriet Tubman, transported slaves through the Underground Railroad. Martin Luther King, he had a dream. I mean, you're talking about slavery, you're talking about the Middle Passage, you're talking about, things like Tulsa, where this country is just ingrained in a lot of racism. So you're talking about, you're giving the history of America that is not just coming from white people in the way they've written it, but also a lot of history that America, is based on because of the racism that is in this country.
Well, in that case, then yes, I definitely agree that should be taught in schools. I mean, we need to. I think people should. Yeah, I think people definitely should know the history of even the dark parts of our country that we could learn from it. Absolutely.
Why do you think so many conservatives and other white people are against having critical race theory taught in schools? And I don't even know if critical race theory is even the proper term, but why do you think that, you have people that are against it?
I think they want to feel like they're not responsible at all for anything that go like. I think when schools teach kids that, maybe some like white people think that it's like putting them down or something, which is ridiculous, but I think that's what people think. And they don't want people to look at them in a bad light, which I think is stupid, but I think that's why a lot of people don't want it to be taught.
So do you think white shaming is going on?
I mean, not on a very big scale.
Okay.
Like if that was being taught, would that be shaming?
Well, I mean, I heard the term several times in the last week, from white people who say that, teaching critical race theory in school, or the 1619 project, if it were to move forward, that you're white shaming, meaning that, we're blaming you for something that your ancestors did. We're blaming you if your family happened to have been one that owned slaves. But that's, not what is going on. The whole thing is the fact that just acknowledge that, part of this, this country was built on slavery. I mean, you have, even though the South owned slaves, the economic impact and value of having slaves, helped both the North and the South. They both benefited from having slaves. And I'm not just talking about slaves. I'm talking about, you look at Asians. I mentioned this in one of my other shows about how Chinese people, they were a huge factor in building the railroad. But when you read about who built the railroad, you hear about the Rockefellers, and what have you. You don't hear about the people who actually, went through hell and high water and just trying to make a living, and what they had to go through when they were building this railroad. So I think, when I hear white shaming, I think that, you have people who don't want to be blamed for something that they were not part of.
Can I add something?
Sure.
I think that project is I don't know the whole details about it. I've heard about it, just, you briefly went over it, but history, the whole truth should be told. If you're going to teach history, you can't leave bits and pieces out. When I grew up as a child, 60s and 70s, I remember in the classroom in the elementary stage where we would talk about the Pilgrims, and we would get the colored corn, the tricolored corn, and we would do all kind of crafts and talk about the Pilgrims and the Indians. And when my daughter got to college, she's 24 years old. When my daughter got to college, she taught me something about that passage with Pilgrims that I wasn't taught in school. She told me that the Pilgrims befriended the Native Americans with deception. And some of you may have heard that they actually deliberately brought smallpox in blankets to give them, hoping that it would kill them. So that part of history has been left out. The Pilgrims have been, at least by, I'm not gonna say all of them, but the Pilgrims have been taught when I was in school as these friendly people who wanted to be friends with the Native Americans. They weren't even called Native Americans then; they were called Indians.
Right.
They wanted to befriend them, to be like neighbors, but they were actually, for the most part, trying to wipe them out, which they almost did. They put them in reservations. They took their land. They put them in reservations. A lot of them developed diseases. But like I said, that was an eye-opening to me when I found out from her that they deliberately gave these Native Americans smallpox with giving them blankets. And I said, that's horrific. And that you can't leave out. You're going to teach about the Pilgrims, teach everything. Don't leave out the stuff that make them look good and make the other races look bad or not matter. You have to teach the whole history. And this, the same thing with Christopher Columbus. He was the hero all the years that I was in school, but yet he really wasn't a hero. So I wanted to say that.
No, I mean, you are right. And last week when I was actually talking about Native Americans, I did talk about the Pilgrims, and that, there were pilgrims who came over actually like 100 years prior to the Mayflower. And they did want to learn from the Native Americans, and you're right, they were called Indians then. But there is a whole dark history there, and if you talk to Native Americans and, their history, there's a whole part that is left out. So yes, you are right. You are right. With so many different cultures in this country, we have to hear from everybody. We just can't, hear, Christopher Columbus came, to America, or he discovered America. I mean, there were people already here, the Aztec and the Mayans, they were already here. There's just so much history in this country, good and bad, that we don't know, and there are people who do know, and people who, want to tell it. And, we should be open-minded to hear it, because America, like they say, is a melting pot. We have some of everybody here, and everyone should be represented fairly. So does anybody want to comment on anything I just said, or what Shy Lady just said?
Well, I definitely agree with everything you said.
Okay.
Well, I think in especially younger parts of education, that they don't want to leave negative connotation on any part of the class. They don't want to teach any negatives in elementary school, especially kindergarten and through second grade.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I didn't learn about, the killing of pilgrims and all that till I was probably in about 5th or 6th grade, I would say.
Okay, can I ask how old you are, if you want to say?
I am 17 right now.
Okay, so when I was in school, just like Shy Lady said, in kindergarten, you had people who, around Thanksgiving, you had people who were Indians, you had people who were pilgrims, and you had the crafts and everything, and they, on Thanksgiving, they sat down, they, had this wonderful feast. Everyone loved each other, and I didn't learn about the true history of the Mayflower and the Pilgrims and the Indians or Native Americans until I got to college.
Oh, sorry.
No, so, so I'm thinking, all through grammar school that, the Indians and Pilgrims, they were sitting around, giving each other high fives. Everybody was happy. But that's not the way it really was. And if you talk to a Native American and and they have history that's been passed down, it wasn't like that.
Well, I feel like the education uses it as an opportunity to have a, more like a fun class day. Because I mean, when you're 6 years old, you don't really want to hear about how diseases killed off indigenous people, I don't think.
No, true.
So I just, especially now growing up, you do learn about all that earlier. So school has changed since then. But when you're that young, you don't want, I'm sure it would scare kids to learn about slavery or the killing of our Native Americans.
So at what age do you think that children should start to learn about race? And remembering that as they're growing up, that they, are going to school, with, different cultures and what have you, you do have, you know, that those two friends, one's white, one's black, and they're best friends and what have you. At what point do you think that children should start to learn about race? When one day something happens and they run home and say, mommy, mommy, this is what happened? Or, I mean, what do you think?
I mean, you should always be taught to love everyone equally, but I mean, learning about race, I would say when you're about 9 years old, I would say, but I don't feel like you should be introduced to ideas of discrimination early on, because maybe that could be something, maybe I feel like you could be more prone to discriminate if you learn about it.
Okay.
But yeah, just
Okay. Okay. All right, 9 years old. Okay, that's still relatively young. Do you think that is something that should be a required class when you go to college? If you go to college, that it should be a required class?
no, I don't think you should be taught. I don't feel like you should have to go to a class to learn about race and such. I think you should, if you should almost already have an idea of it, and it's not something that should be taught in a classroom. Really, it should be taught from experiences. I think, because people that are discriminatory don't want to change, and I feel like people that would be in a class for that would most likely already not want to discriminate.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Just want to comment on his comment. Of course, it's his opinion, and I'm going to express my opinion. Having worked in the corporate world, I believe that it should be a required course, because when you come to the corporate world, even in college, I'm a college graduate. I had a roommate who was from a small town, majority white, and this person had never been around Black people ever. And I went through a lot of issues with this roommate. She had no clue how to converse or be around a Black person. It was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. Now, I have gone to school with white people since the 4th grade, so I knew what I was dealing with. But I didn't know is a person that had never ever gone to school with anybody Black in any of her classes from elementary to college. So, in my opinion, I think it's necessary, because these same people who go to college and have never been around people of color, you're going to work with them in the work world. If you happen to get a manager who does not have experience with people of color, it's going to be difficult for a qualified person to move forward under that manager. And that's where systematic racism comes in the corporate world. And that's what I want to say.
Okay. All right. You do make a point. I've been going to school with, white people since kindergarten. My elementary school was my elementary school was mostly white. And high school was half and half. But no, you make a very good point. Yeah. Well, I am at the end. I enjoyed this show. We had some trolls, but I got rid of them, let them have their little say, and, they were being trolly. So, but anyway, I enjoyed the show and thank you for your participation. And again, everyone, speak your truth. I'm Sally Blue Sister, and I will see you next time. Bye.